share my screen. Here we go. So our goals over the course of the time that we have together is just to be able to collaborate as a grade band PLC and be able to share some resource and platform ideas and examples of in-home learning that what it could look like for HiCap students or students that have similar areas of strength and how they might be used to address student plan goals. And that was out of some feedback that came out of the last sessions, trying to kind of look at what are some examples of how that could look and how does that fit into the in-home learning that you're already providing, not as the way to do it, but a way to do it. And we can have other conversations off of this too, but that's kind of the hope today. You did do it, thank you. And then being able to consider and potentially create over the next couple sessions some in-home learning experiences. And we have a smaller group today, so we may or may not use the breakout rooms like I had planned, just because we have a smaller group, but we might break into twos and use that as a way to view some of the examples. So before we do that, I think it's important for us to just connect as people. So you can either speak using the video option, or you can use the chat feature in Zoom, but to be able to share what's one thing that you are secretly pleased about not having to do now that we're social distancing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Not having to wake up early, not having to commute.
That was also shared in our other sessions about not having to wake up early and not having to deal with traffic.
I think I'm in the same boat. Definitely getting more sleep, I think, now.
I'm glad to not have to get dressed every day like regular people dressed.
Pages. There's a lot of pages.
There's a lot of pages.
I am secretly thankful for being able to eat breakfast in my home. I often am eating in the car or trying to shovel like as few bites as possible at my desk before the next thing. So I'm happy to be able to eat a little bit more at a leisurely pace. And sometimes that's not a good thing too, because I snack more when there's just like food sitting around. But that's what I'm thankful for. Hi, Chris. We were just sharing one thing that we are secretly pleased about not having to do with social distancing. I know you've shared that working at home has been kind of challenging for you. So
it's just annoying.
Yeah.
No, I think while I am taking notes so I can blackmail you all later, but no, the thing I think that I'm happy with is not having to deal with traffic.
Yep.
So
nice.
Could be worse, but at the same time, it's kind of nice not having to strategize my way to work and from work every day.
Understood. So we're appreciative for a little bit more sleep, less traffic to deal with, and a little bit more leisurely pace, I think, in life. So thanks for being able to take time to connect with each other, just even for a moment, to remind ourselves that we are human in this kind of crazy time. So with the time that we have together today, just a reminder about our visual collaboration norms, both with Zoom and just conversation-wise. So I'll take a minute just to read those over, and then if those look agreeable to you, if you just show me with the thumb up on your screen. If there's anything that we need to add, let me know, and that can be added as well. Seeing thumbs up. So today we'll take kind of two different phases of looking at some examples of what in-home learning could look like for highly capable students or students with similar areas of strength. And again, this is not the way to do it, but a way to do it. And I think it's important for us to consider together, like how how this might be received by not only students, by families, and how it can be something that is incorporated into what you're already doing, not as a replacement. So I just want to make sure that you hear that from me as we're talking about these today. So we're going to walk through this first one with literacy together, and then we'll break out into some breakout rooms to look at examples in both math and science as well, and come back around together to talk about, yes, we do science too. We'll come back around to have a conversation about those things together. So this first example in literacy is trying to, in each example that I provide, tries to pull on the enduring concepts that have already been, that work that's already been done for us to try and guide the learning that happens over the remainder of the year. So that's at the bottom of your screen. And the hope is to be able to provide an example of something that could be learning that would extend across more than a day's time, or considering like a week of instruction or learning that kids could engage in. So knowing that theme is one of those enduring concepts, this is an example that students could be engaging in. And the mini lesson that I modeled for in this video that you'll watch in a second gets at that idea of being able to identify theme by using the back blurb, or you could use the front flap in a text to be able to be a starting point to kind of give you clues about what the theme might be. So I'm going to go ahead and play the video for you. And as we're watching, just for you to think about any noticings or wonderings that you have and how this might fit into the in-home learning experiences that you're providing for students.
Hi everyone, and welcome back. Earlier this year, we learned about identifying theme, and we're going to continue practicing skills related to this process with our independent reading books this week. When I read, I often ask, what's this story really about? And I come up with tentative ideas that I test as I read on. Today, I want to teach you that readers begin to identify a theme or themes in a text by reading the back blurb, connecting it to the story, and thinking, what does this story teach me? While I've been at home, I've been going through some of the boxes in my closet. And some of those boxes are collections of books from my classroom library. The other day, I came across one of my favorites, Navigating Early by Claire Vanderpool, and I quickly put it to the top of my to-read book stack. Whenever I preview a book or return to reading one like this one, I make sure to read the back cover or the front side flap of the book. These blurbs give me important information as a reader, and today I'm going to use them to give me a glimpse into what the theme or themes of the story might be. Let's read the blurb together, pausing at key words that might give us a hunch about the theme or themes of the story. After his mother's death at the end of World War II, Jack Baker is suddenly uprooted from his home in Kansas and placed in a boys' boarding school in Maine. I'm going to pause here because this word, uprooted, is making me think of a possible theme. Maybe something about adjusting to change. I could see how something like this might shape the characters in the story. Let's read on. There he meets Early Auden, the strangest of boys, who reads the number pi as an unending story and collects clippings about sightings of a black bear in the nearby mountains. Feeling lost and adrift, Jack can't help being drawn to Early, who refuses to believe what people and everyone accepts to be the truth about the great Appalachian bear, timber rattlesnakes, and the legendary school hero known as the Fish, who was lost in the war. Are there any keywords jumping out at you that might give you a hunch about a theme or themes in the story? Go ahead and pause here and think about it. Now that we're back, we're going to continue reading the blurb. When Jack and Early find themselves alone at school, they set out for the Appalachian Trail on a quest for the great black bear. Along the way, they meet some truly strange characters, several of them dangerous, all lost in some way, and each a part of the pie story Early continues to reveal. I'm going to pause here. After what I've read, and this phrase, all lost in some way, I'm thinking there might be a theme or themes around acceptance or the ideas of finding yourself or self-discovery. I could see this as a recurring problem over the course of the story. Jack's ability to be a steadfast friend to Early will be tested as the boys discover things they never knew about themselves and others. This phrase, steadfast friend, also caught my attention. As I pause, I'm thinking about this might be something related to an unlikely or true friendships theme, maybe. Now that I've read the blurb to get hunches about what the theme or themes of the story might be, I'm going to hold on to these ideas and compare them to what happens in the story as I continue reading. See how I read the back blurb to get some hunches about what the theme or themes of the story might be? As you read your independent reading books this week, remember that good readers begin to identify the theme or themes of a text by reading the back blurb, connecting it to the story, and thinking, what does this story teach me? And also be ready to share some of your theme hunches at our next conference. See you soon.
So any initial thinking, noticings, wonderings as you watch that mini lesson? Go ahead, Kalisa.
Thinking about what materials they have access to right now. Does Mayan have a summary or something that they can use to practice?
That's a good question. I'm not as familiar with Mayan. Does anyone else know if there are like summaries or snippets?
Yeah, I don't.
I think in the libraries, they've just gotten a whole bunch of new books, and those, like, even though they're ebooks, they have the summaries on them.
Okay.
On the books or on the like Destiny?
Yeah,
Maybe
on Destiny. Yeah.
Like KCLS, all of the KCLS online library, actually all the KCLS stuff all has book summaries. So it's easy enough for them if they've got internet access to just go to the KCLS website and look at book descriptions.
And that's a good question too. I think Lisa, thinking about just access to materials. So some kids may have a book or books laying around the house, and maybe others need to have something provided. So whether we give them a choice about kind of searching around for that, if we know they have that access, or I think it's okay for us to provide one too. Like to just be able to say, here's a text that I do have access to, and I'm going to provide a photo like I did for them to be able to work with, so they have access to something.
I really like how this is just a quick, clean lesson about one part of it, but then continuing on, like we can talk about this when we have our, I can't remember what she called it, like conference or something.
Yeah.
I think this just got me thinking about how, like, we did a read aloud for our class, but I like how you have part of the screen has the text on there. And so, like, I didn't even think about doing, if we could do like half of the screen, you know, with the text, half, and like highlighting words, or with text boxes, and then half of it us reading it. And that just got me thinking about the lessons that we're doing, and if we do another read aloud, just some ideas that we could incorporate to make it an even better lesson. So I like that.
Thank you, Isabel. I used Screencastify was the tool that I used to do the recording. I know there's lots of different options to do that. Something I like about Screencastify is that it talks to Google really well. So like it's really easy to embed videos into Google Slides as the medium that I used. And then you can just, if you're using Google Classroom, you can upload it there. So that's the kind of features. And I'd be happy to, there's questions you have about Screencastify either today or just in general, I'm happy to play around with that with you too. It's been something that for me during this time has been an exciting tool to learn. And it's pretty cool in that it can provide not just like voiceovers like this one, but you have an option to do picture-in-picture, which can be a little bit more personalized for kids too. Any other thoughts or wonderings about this piece? Does this feel similar, or like it might align with what's being provided already for students? Does it feel like too much of a jump, or how it might be received by your families? I think that's important for us to consider too.
I don't know that it's necessarily a jump for the kids or anything like that. I think the kids would take it in, and I don't know that they would really do a lot with some of this. I mean, there's they don't really have an activity connected with this overly much. So I'm finding that the kids are the ones that are wanting to go and do a bunch of things is they're going to go off and do it. And the other ones that they're just going to kind of look at it and turn away from it right now. So I don't know what, like, I think one of the things that I'm having a hard time with is the mini lessons are a great idea, but the reality is only 4 or 5 of the kids are really caring anything about it. And so it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah. I think that's valid.
I would agree. It does feel like what we would do in class, but not necessarily like with the structure that we have right now. I mean, it's a little too loose of a structure right now. I think if the technology aspect was a little tightened up and a little bit more of an expectation that they do, then it would definitely be a great option.
Yes. So I'm hearing in the chat that it feels like it's connected to what we're already doing. And I also hear you, Kristen, that I think we're going to have a lot of variation in how kids are experiencing the learning. Some are going to be taking it and running with it, and others it's going to be a little bit more, like we're going to have to engage them in a different way. So the hope is, like you saw in the video, to try and loop it into that weekly communication we're having with students and families, not necessarily across all content, but maybe there's one area that I'm like, I really want to hear about what they're doing in reading this week. Like, I just want to hear from everybody and have that be a goal. That maybe for some kids, that's the push that they need to engage or feel a little like more sense of accountability when that conversation is being had.
And I'll add, if I do I'm in charge of reading for my team. That's what I've been planning. And if I do a lesson like this on Google Classroom, I'll just say we've been adding like a turn in section in the directions so they know what they're supposed to turn in to show their learning. And they can, a lot of times I'll just do leave me a comment, you know, like this, leave me a comment with what you're thinking the theme might be. And then they could either do it privately or in the whole, where the whole class can see it. And then it's kind of fun because then other kids can read what their classmates are thinking.
Yeah, the stream feature can be helpful too, for sure. So the hope with this is that this is a beginning point and that this could then be a catalyst for learning across a week. So in this particular example, this mini lesson kind of highlighted one aspect of just reading and thinking about what's in the blurb. But that when I was putting this together, I went back and forth to like assigning the parts as like day equivalents. But I think I keep thinking about reframing that and thinking about how kids access learning and being able to self-pace around kind of different parts or phases that kids can work through at their own pace. So that students could practice reading the back blurb and then being able to jot down their hunches and then being able to use an organizer of some type to kind of compare that as they're reading their book, like what's happening in the story and what did I think based upon the blurb. And then that last part being able to, Mia, no touch please, have students review their hunches and compare and share those as well. So that the idea isn't that this is a day, but there could be some things that stretch out over the course of a week as well. And with, so that if that's a week, potentially close to a week of learning that kids could be doing and thinking about families too and how they have to manage all of the things that are going on in their world right now, just thinking about how can kids be working on kind of the thing in reading for a week and have that be a focus. And that maybe feels a little bit more manageable. And as a next step, the next lesson might be that they take kind of those seed ideas and be able to grow them into a theme. So that the hope is that it's over a course of a week, that they can engage in some things. So that's one example in literacy. Any final thoughts, wonderings about that before we go into breakout rooms and take a look at some math and science examples?
I was just thinking about something I did with my students last week, and that was we took theme then, and to make it a fun project, they designed a water bottle for their character. And you know how everybody likes stickers on their water bottles right now? So they designed 3 stickers and why. So really getting into connecting theme and symbolism together. And that was a nice sort of culminating project. And then they brought that to our small group and shared. So just another
Yeah.
sort of layer to this.
Right. Thank you, Ross, for sharing that. And I think being able to to use that creative aspect of it as a way to engage kids, I think is really, really important. Thank you.
I didn't bring home that book when we were exiting our classroom.
Oh, okay. So the strategies book. Yeah. So if I know every building is operating differently with like who can go in and how long, and so I would say work with your building leadership team. And if for some reason you need some, we have copies down at Keck. We can be runners to your houses too if you feel like it's worth having it here for the big question mark, however long we're doing learning at home. We're open to that too. Or if there's a particular skill or something like that that you're looking for students, I'm happy to, I've become good at like the camera scan docs and taking a picture and doing snip art. So I could send you some things too if you had specific interests but didn't have access to the resource. Please don't touch. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and split off into some breakout rooms. So if you're not familiar with them in Zoom, there's a feature where you can put people into breakout rooms, and you can do it either manually where they have a computer, or you select them, or intentionally, or you can have Zoom just automatically put people in breakout rooms. There were some questions in our last sessions with the breakout rooms if it records during the breakout rooms. So I recorded yesterday a couple different sessions, and it does record when you are in that breakout room. So you can go back and forth between the breakout rooms. So you can, when you have joined a breakout room, you can, no touch please. You can see and hear what's going on. I know that some teachers have talked about concern of like just making sure that there's, like if kids are in a breakout room, that they're being monitored. So if you need somebody to sit in to monitor a group of kids, let us know. Candace and I are open to that. Also, some teams have used all kind of hands on deck. So everybody in 4th grade comes into the book groups and monitors kids' conversations in the breakout rooms. So are you guys familiar with breakout rooms? Yay, nay? Yeah. Set it up in Zoom before? Okay. So I'm seeing some yes and some no. So I'm gonna just do a quick flyby of like how you would set that up because it just doesn't come set up in your settings. So let me share my screen again.
Kelly, real quick, we got a communication yesterday in my 5th grade team that we are not supposed to use the breakout rooms unless there is someone that is not only monitoring but also recording every room. So the kids are, like we were told specifically, the kids are not supposed to be in a breakout room without some kind of recording monitor in there.
Okay, so that's a good, that's good information to know. Did that come from your leadership team, or did that come from like as a district-wide communication?
It came from leadership.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if that's a site-specific leadership discussion or focus or whatnot, but just, I mean, it makes sense, but I guess there was a Zoom meeting on yesterday where they were training some of the paraprofessionals on how to be in monitors within breakout rooms and that kind of a thing. But yeah.
Okay, that's good information to know. And I think it's wise to just make sure you have some kind of monitoring in place for kids. So if it's teammates or something like that where it's being monitored and recorded, I think that's important. So if you're going to set up breakout rooms in Zoom, you would just go into your Zoom account and you would go into the settings, and then you would scroll down pretty far down on the page. And there's the breakout room feature here. Just make sure that it's turned on. And then I also have clicked where, as the host, you can assign participants to breakout rooms so that if I want to be more intentional about who I'm putting in the breakout rooms, I can do that. Then once it's set up in that way, at the bottom bar of your Zoom screen, there will be an icon that says breakout rooms. It kind of has a 4 square picture or symbol on it. And when you click on that, it'll ask you to assign your participants to whatever number of rooms you want. So you can choose how big or small the groups are going to be. And you can choose to automatically have them grouped, or you can choose to manually do it. So that's kind of a little bit about breakout rooms. Another cool feature that I'll use today when you're in the breakout rooms is you can broadcast a message to the breakout room, so that if you wanted to say, hey, like we're going to come back and meet in 10 minutes, or remember, this is one of the questions I want you to think about, you can use that feature. One thing I found is if you want, like today when I'm sharing the links, I'm going to have to actually join your breakout room to share the links with you, because if I share them in the main chat, they don't show up in the breakout rooms for you. So that was a little bit of a summary of Zoom breakout rooms. So I'm going to set up a couple rooms for us to go into, and I'm going to give you some links to examples of what in-home learning could look like in math and science. Again, it's not the way, but a way. There are 2 math examples because there was some interest last time, and not only what are some grade level, like enduring understandings, Mia, no touch please, but also what are some ways that if kids are ready for the next step or some more advanced material, if kids have some goals they're really trying to reach to, what could I look at? And then the science example that I'm providing is an opportunity that can last over several days. And that could also, Mia, no touch please, could be integrated, could integrate multiple content areas. So I'm gonna split you off. Let's see, do we lose one? Let's see, how do I do this? Mia, I need to, Mia, I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and send you to those breakout rooms, and I will pop in to give you those links, and go ahead and take some time. You can either explore independently, kind of the 2 links, and come back together, or you can take a look together at those and have conversations about what you notice and how it aligns with what you're providing with in-home learning already. So I'll see you in a sec.
Sometimes we've kind of switched it out, but this week I am, and
Yeah.
I mean for next week I am too.
Jeff has been using that, the mini lessons for ELA, the strategy book for social studies.
Oh,
So I think that's a great idea.
So you should have the 2 links there for you, and I'll be back in a few.
Thanks.
This is my 8th year, so
Oh, wow.
and all in Discovery, so still
Cool.
here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe.
And so today my kids are trying it and they're going to give me feedback on what they think. But, you know, like right in the middle of the slideshow, you can say, okay, write your response down here. And, you know, it's like a bulletin board of everybody's responses. So I did a 3-act math, trying that out.
Oh. I think that's a good way for kids to explore on there with the 3-act tasks.
And also for me, because I wanted to see what they thought about, because it's 7 slides, and within those 7 slides, there's 3 times that they do something
right
different.
So I think for us, it's been hard since most of our, like the strength of our math curriculum is the discussion and the turn and talk and building off of each other's ideas. And then now how do you do it in a way that's accessible to everybody? And not so technologically difficult that parents can't help their kid. A lot of troubleshooting with parents, and how do you type on a slide, and how do you
Yeah, there's so much I wish I'd taught the kids before we left.
Yes.
Well, keep that in mind for the fall, so when we all get shut down again this next winter, we actually have more of a foundation to do this with.
And that's something that came up in conversation yesterday with our 3rd grade group, is just how do we, kind of twofold from what you're talking about, how do we reframe how we're presenting things, or continue to reframe like, oh wait, so I'm not only having to tell kids how to do this, but also families need to be able to navigate something. When I've been working with materials, just like, okay, so I need like a little bit of an introduction, and like, here's how you walk through 3 steps before we actually get to the activity. So I can try and encourage engagement. So like, remember how we join a Google Classroom, remember how we get to the stream, remember how, you know what I mean? Just like almost having a copy and paste slide, or like, remember we're accessing this tool again. So I just like copy and paste it. But also thinking about what you said, Chris, too, is that a big question mark is what the fall is going to look like. And that's actually part of the next series of meetings after this one, is talking about what that might look like what instructionally might it look like, and thinking about how do we include that interaction for kids so that they have the opportunity to have like a partnership or a small group that they constantly are working with to feel connected. And thinking about how we can continue to utilize those tools to build off of that. So I think the innovation that you're doing, engaged in right now, is going to be so helpful, not only in the fall if we're in person or not, but when we are back in person, just like, what can we do with that? Now that we've had that learning too. I'm going to hop to the other room really quick. Any questions for me?
Oh, do we have mystery science? I see your example, and I saw we adopted something.
Yeah, so mystery science is not our adoption,
Right.
But it is public access right now. And a lot of what Elisa has put out as materials to use to kind of start practicing getting at NGSS standards for grade level has been linked to that. And in the enduring concept section for science at each grade level, she has a couple documents, one of highlighting kind of what are those enduring concepts based upon the different domains of science and your grade level. And then resources, it's super easy to use, really nice guide to be able to say like this resource and lesson would get at this.
I was just thinking of next year.
Yeah.
Because we have a subscription this year at our
Right. So I'm not sure. I mean, I'm curious about what publishers continue to do too. If people continue to be somewhat closed, like if they continue to leave those resources kind of open source, or if they kind of fall back into what was like the normal routine of doing subscription. But yeah, I'm not sure what the status of that is. But I know that adoption stuff is still moving forward, just in a more phased piece of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Kids can use, younger like kids that have not had algebra yet, but also this task can easily go to the end of high school and beyond. So let's take a look. All right, so this is our apple orchard pattern, as you can see. And first, it's good to just look at it and like, how do you see it growing, regardless of what any of these represent? How do you describe this pattern? What do you see in there? And it's great if you can talk about this with somebody. How do you describe the X's and the circles? And if not, just think about it for yourself. You can even try writing it down for yourself. How can you like put into words what you're seeing here? And once you do that, I can tell you a bit more about the context. So these circles are meant to be apple trees, and the X's are meant to be conifers, because when they plant apple trees in the orchards, they usually surround them by conifers like that on the periphery. So this is a bit of a representation of that. And let me show you. Oh no, that's my screen. Here we have more versions of it. So the one we're looking at was case number 2. And like I said, the X's are conifer trees and the circles are apple trees. But you can see cases 1 through 4. So younger students can just like work on making the patterns. They're quite complex patterns. So to make any of these, you can find 2 colors of beads, or like 2 types of beans, or 2 like of anything you have around the house that's small. And trying to make this pattern physically. So you can start making the first one, and then make the second one and the third one, and just think about, you know, talk about how many more of each do you need as they grow? Do you have more of the conifers, more of the apple trees? And how does that keep changing as you keep building bigger cases? So those are really interesting conversations for younger students. But then older students can think about those questions. They can model it. Modeling is great for any age. But they can also start abstracting from that. You can work on writing expressions for the apple trees and for the conifer trees and how they're growing, and thinking about the growth rates, like which one grows faster, the number of conifer trees or the number of apple trees. And it's great to be able to communicate this with visuals, with graphs, with expressions, using all the tools you have to share the kind of growth. And also thinking about in the nth case, so for any case, how many of each do you need? So if you are given a number, you can say for that case number, how many conifers or how many apple trees there are. So this is kind of an interesting task. The pattern, I think, is really beautiful. And you can feel free to explore it and let us know how it goes with #YouCubed@home on social media. Have fun.
I really like how interactive it is, having them find things in their house to use to model. Let's see. If I can
Yeah,
get back.
and I liked that question of which one grows faster. I think that would be
Mhm.
interesting for them to figure out.
Yeah.
We'd have to define conifer. I was just thinking they might not know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe add pictures or something of the different trees. But yeah, that'd be a fun one to add as an activity, or even like during a Zoom call or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty. Now, was that a video for the students, or was that like a teacher video?
Seemed more like teacher directed. I think
It
for
was more
kids it'd be a little
teacher
confusing.
directed.
Yeah.
So then is that like for teachers to make, or is there like a video connected to it for students, or is that like for like, oh, here's an idea that you could make for your students? 'Cause I
Yeah,
really
so
like it.
it was really, it was directed more from the UCube team to teachers, like or families, like here's an activity that you could do. The UCubed at home activities is part of what the UCube team has put together for like stay home orders. So they've tried to pull from the kind of their collection and make it a little bit more accessible to families, but it's definitely something I think that you could use. Like you could put the link in for reference,
Mhm.
and it might be worth, like Annie was saying, like there's specific vocabulary that you feel like you need to define or like introduce the activity a little bit more or in a different way for your kids with your face attached to that or your voice. That might make a lot of difference. I've been thinking a lot about that, about how we just even take 2 or 3 minutes to record something that has our voice or our picture attached, and how that can really make a difference in how kids engage with it. or feel
Yeah, I've
like
been
they
trying to do
can.
that with our assignments, at least reading the directions. I think
Yeah.
just that
I think it makes a lot of
that much more
difference.
engaging. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's something that could go over the course of quite a long time. I mean, I think when you look at the guiding questions and the level of challenge is pretty meaty. Some of the things to dig into. And even though the standards are not considered like enduring concepts per the work in RSD, it is considered part of Common Core skills. So they're going to see them again as they continue to go up grade levels, and they'll experience them as fifth graders, and they would get into them in sixth grade for sure. So it might be something that for kids that are like ready for that next level of abstraction, there's that fine line between like overwhelm and and feeling like they can handle it. So for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Any other questions for me before I pop back out?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll see you in a few.
Great.
Hi.
I have to get ready for my small group meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the examples that I showed today, I will send out a follow-up email. It'll have links to those, so you don't have to like madly write down or hope that you remember what that looked like.
Okay.
And I will also hopefully post a recording of this, so if you have colleagues or something like that wanted to tap into it, they can go into it too.
Thanks, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Bye, Lisa. So noticings, wonderings from the examples that you had an opportunity to explore.
I noticed that something that my team has not been as mindful about is they all include the objective. And, you know, we have gone at this so quickly that it honestly, like 2 weeks ago, we realized that we were not including objectives. So now we're working toward, you know, we're working on that, but it's, you know, and that idea, like in the science lesson, I listened to the very beginning of it, and it talked about like what we've done before. And, you know, so all that sort of like making it a true lesson instead of just something you jump into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Roz, and just being really clear about what the goal is.
Mm-hmm.
And that way it's more explicit for families and kids.
Yeah.
I know for
And
myself.
it doesn't feel
Go
so
ahead.
vague and fuzzy.
Right. Working with my kindergartner at home, I felt like, is this what we're supposed to be doing? Like, I feel like are we just doing the sheet? That's all we're doing? Yeah, so I can empathize.
Yeah.
Any other noticings or wonderings?
These feel also pretty easy to put together.
Yeah. I think that's important too. That was something Candace and I talked a lot about, is like, I feel like teachers right now just need something to like make and take. Like, okay, yay, I don't need to like think about it or make another decision. I can just kind of like, okay, yes, this aligns with what I'm doing, and I feel like it would fit well, and I'm gonna take it and run with it. So hopefully that's some of the feeling that you have for those examples. So before we part ways, for next time, it's important for us to continue to make sure that we can meet your needs. Is there anything that feels top of mind to you, or things that you're interested in digging into more? It could be more of the same and kind of providing other examples of what week-long learning could look like. Possibilities are kind of endless, but we want it to be meaningful for you.
I would say I enjoy seeing different examples of activities, especially ones that are engaging, things I haven't really thought of yet. And I also just like hearing from other teachers from other schools and see what they're doing, and see what I can bring into our classroom right now. I really enjoy that part.
Thank you, Estelle. And the third grade team yesterday just said, surprise us, Kelly. And that's okay too. So if you just are like, whatever, we'll take the grab bag. I'll try and choose something where I say, okay, I'll try and choose something that feels authentic to the work that you're doing. And it's not meant to be an ad, but more of like, how can this fit? Because you guys you're carrying a big load along with students and families and lots of other people during this time. So it's meant to be more of like a thought provocation or like something to add into that. Anything else for me?
Kelly, is it okay if we share these? Because I opened the lessons, so I think they're now on my my internet files, but is it okay if we share these with our grade level team?
Absolutely. So I will send a follow-up email to all of you with links to those examples, and they should have the links embedded to each of the resources too. So for sure.
Okay.
It's not exclusive to this group, but please do share. Because my hope is that it's an example that could be used more widely, and it's not just a HiCap thing.
Right.
I think for genuinely that accessibility wise for the next step for kids, or skills wise. So yeah, do share, please.
Yeah, and I feel like this is like more engaging, and so that's good for everybody.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't know what the feel is with. I know Bridges has a lot of things to offer, and so I know that I highlighted U-cubed materials as a part of that. I don't want it to compete with the Bridges materials, but maybe more alongside. Or if like my son's teacher is structuring it so they have more like curriculum-based stuff Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday is kind of like a game or something else that's a little bit different, to try and mix it up from okay, another Bridges, another Bridges, another Bridges, or another mini lesson, another mini lesson, another mini lesson kind of thing. So you can break up some of the monotony. Okay, well, if there's nothing else for me, thank you so much for your time and energy today. And let me know as we continue to work during this time how we can support you. And if you have questions, I know emails went out over the last couple of days about changes in positions and stuff like that. If you have more questions for me about that, you can ask me, or you can also email any of the directors too. I'm positive about or optimistic about the outcomes that will happen with that. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.